I want to talk about one of the most confusing things that I have been researching, studying, and thinking about for a long time. And now that I've finally found some answers that really make sense to me, I want to share the secret, real, ultimate truth about masculine and feminine, which isn't going to be anything you've ever heard before, and I guarantee it's true. So, what is the actual dictionary definition of masculine? Do you know? It is somewhat dissatisfying. The dictionary says masculine is related to men, feminine related to women. So, what does this mean for us? It means nothing. Because everything we think about men and women, as defined by male and female, which we'll get to in just a moment, has been colored by culture, history, belief, and a lot of moral judgments about what is and isn't okay, what is and is not right. Of course, male and female do exist in a biological sense, and there is an exact definition for it. That definition is gamete size. In other words, if you have the larger gamete, we call that an egg, and you're female. If you have the smaller gametes, we call that sperm or something similar, and you are male. But beyond that, nobody really knows what is masculine, what is feminine, what are masculine traits, what are feminine traits. So let's stop defining ourselves in terms of masculine and feminine, in terms of what we're missing and what is wrong with us, which is where the conversation usually goes. Because somebody talks about, well, if you're from Mars, this is how you are. And if you're from Venus, this is what you should be doing or how you should be thinking. No, not at all. So just like all of the general society has its ideas about what women and men should do, and those have all been destroyed and broken over the last 50 and 100 years, every new incarnation of thought brings in new ideas about what masculine and feminine are or should be. And these are basically just as invalid as the ones we had before, which is why we're getting increasingly frustrated at the lack of knowing who we are from this point of view and what we should be doing, and all of the battle that we feel about sexuality and gender and connection and relating that is completely breaking these bounds. There isn't any real authority. There's nobody who's talking to God to bring us the answers. Just because we vote for someone doesn't mean they know more than we do. And just because someone had a scientific result doesn't mean that there's no observer bias or that the next result can be different. The answers are in each of us. So let's talk a little bit differently. Let's talk about yin and yang. Now, these are Eastern concepts, and you don't have to use that language. You can think in terms of active and receptive if you want, and just translate it into that. But for purposes of this discussion, I want to talk about yinness and yangness. I want to talk about what it means to be in yin or to be in yang. Now, generally, there's a little bit of variation, but in Eastern cultures, the yin is thought of as receptive, yielding, soft, slow, dark in terms of negative space, empty, able to receive. The dark part of this symbol that you see, this is the yin part. Open, it's connected to night, the shadows, moon. Yin actually means the dark side or the shaded portion of a hillside. That's what yin means in Chinese. Yang means active or aggressive, penetrating, hard, full, in terms of positive space, fulfilled space, not positive, negative in a judgmental sense, but in terms of full positive space, bright, focused, light, or day. So that's the bright side that you see. And of course, each one contains a little of the other. All the way at night is not total black, and all the way at day is not just light. So which one are you in usually? The open, receptive, yielding space, or the aggressive, focused, expressive, penetrating space? Which one dominates your life, do you feel? And this is a bit of a trick question. We know which one is taught and practiced in our society. We respect the people who make lots of money, who make an impact, the big politicians, the musicians, the actors. Those are the people that go out and do something. And so that looks very young from the outside. The truth is a little bit different. What would a balance be of yin and yang, do you think? Is this a trick question? The first time I thought about it, I said, it can't be that simple, can it? 50-50? Really? But let's think about it a little bit more in depth. Because it sounds too simple to be actually right. So if I'm receiving half the time and I'm giving half the time, how can the world work? No, that can't be possible. We need to produce, we need to create. What if everybody did that? Well, what if everyone was receiving half the time and giving half the time? Wouldn't there be actual perfect total balance? And it's only logical that this is the way the energy has to work. I'll show you what happens in an imbalance. What if we're doing 80% giving, 20% receiving? Or 90-10? What if we're in that yang energy a much, much higher percentage of the time? Well, they must stay in balance. It's just an energetic law. And if not, guess what happens? Let's take the example of breathing. So if you try to breathe out 80% of the time and only breathe in 20%, what happens as you practice that is that you notice that you can't breathe out more air than you take in. If it was not perfectly balanced over time, you would either pop or completely run out of air. So it has to be balanced, which means if you reduce one side of the equation, you automatically are going to reduce the other side of the equation. There's no other way to do it. If you don't, your capacity decreases in the other direction. Just like your laptop doesn't have endless electrons, it has to be charged, and then it's depleted, and it's charged and depleted. Same thing with any other energetic structure. If you're not receiving, if a lot of water is not coming into the lake, and the lake is constantly being drained, then pretty soon there's nothing left. So you can only give that small percentage that keeps being replenished, if that makes sense. Yang gets starved, and the capacity will reduce to match yin. So if you feel certain things, you can tell that you're in yin deprivation, so to speak. If you are not in yin enough, what do you experience? You experience exhaustion. Well, I have to give more, but I can't. I have to output more, but I don't have anything to give. You get burned out, and that is advanced exhaustion when you've ignored the first level of signs. Illness can set in because when energy is balanced and flowing, as we learn from traditional Chinese medicine, meridians and acupuncture and these type of things, that the lack of energy flow is what creates illness. And you can call that, in Western medical terms, if you have tension over the long term in a certain place in your body, then there isn't circulation, there isn't blood flowing there like it should be, in and out, just like the breath. And therefore you're going to have illnesses also created by lack of oxygen, lack of nutrients going to that part of the body. These are all things that happen if we're in excessive giving through a mental construct that we have to give, we have to produce all the time. So what happens if we can't accept in relationships, or if we're getting so-called empty calorie connections, as my friend Tail says? We're not receiving that touch or affection or connection or pleasure or depth, then we get starved on those levels, and our ability to give is reduced even further. So if we're not having enough yin, why aren't we not having enough yin? That is a big question. Is it because nobody else is giving? Nobody else is offering anything? Well, then how come we all feel like we're giving so much? Pretty much in general. A lot of us feel exhausted, burned out. We're sick. We don't have enough money, energy, time. Why do we feel like that? If everybody's giving, then where's all that energy going? Or maybe another reason could be we don't know how to switch to receiving. How does that feel just to think about it? Switching to receiving. Is that a good feeling or not so good feeling? Because when I think about receiving, some of the things that come up for me is, wow, I tried to receive, or I tried to be receptive or passive, and I got hurt. I was abused. I was misled. I was used. That was not a good experience. And so if that happened to you, you can develop beliefs around that. It isn't safe to give. I don't know whom to trust. And so I can't go into that space. I have to stay vigilant, powerful, penetrating, protective. And I lose connection to my yin. And we lose connection to our yin through doing that. Now there's another way, and this is what I've been working to figure out, and I'm very happy to say have been starting to understand after years of looking at these questions. How to be in yin. First of all, we have to create a space to receive, a safe space to receive, and a time to receive that matches the amount of energy that we actually need. And we're going to call this the frame to receive, or the yin frame. Once we've created the yin frame that we can receive through, then we have to trust in the universe that we're going to receive that energy and that structure that we need. So if you want to know more about this, subscribe below, and I'll be talking about this in the next videos. Please let your comments be known. Tell me what you thought, and thank you so much for watching.